Wednesday, the 22nd of April was the Earth Day. The United Nations refers to the day as the International Mother Earth Day. According to a writer, the Earth Day is one of the most confused and misguided celebratory days of the year. But is it? This and more are our focus today on Earth File. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ayola Kasim. Some 60 years after activists had fought so hard to win acknowledgement of human rights worldwide, including social, economic, political, and cultural rights, Mother Earth had her rights recognized by the United Nations when the General Assembly proclaimed April 22nd as Mother Earth Day in 2009. So what is it we're supposed to do on Earth Day? According to the United Nations resolution, countries are to observe and raise awareness of International Mother Earth Day as appropriate. Action to that end had never been more vital, as the toll of years of environmental degradation and callous exploitation of the planet's natural resources and ecosystems could no longer be ignored. The incremental yet increasingly obvious impacts of man-made climate change were putting Mother Earth at even more peril. So, year after year, individuals, groups, and even governments have been organizing events to mark this important day in the environment calendar. A warm and sunny Earth Day rally and concert drew thousands of people to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, the 18th of April. Crowds gathered to see performances by Usher, Common, Fall Out Boy, Mary J. Blige, No Doubt, and others, among them Nigeria's D'banj, who were seeking to highlight global poverty and climate change.
The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all, just ain't specific enough. Once undone, the spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it goes down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots be on the ground.
Usher, who took the stage using a gold-colored crush, performed with a cast on his left leg. He underwent surgery on his foot earlier this month.
I might be a little injured, but I'm gonna make sure that I'm there for you. So you guys bear with me today. I wouldn't miss this for anything in the world. This is all about love, hope, togetherness, peace. Peace up, A-Town down. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Somebody say yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on, yeah, 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 yeah. What it do, show, yeah. Let's go. In the crowd with my homies, trying to get a little yeah, but keep it down and low key, low key. 'Cause you know I say cool.
I think we should feel a strong sense of urgency because we have to really deal with these issues in the next few decades. On the other hand, I think sometimes you should stop worrying for a second and actually begin to celebrate a number of positive developments. The growth of awareness, the planet has never been more aware of the problems and the solutions. We've never been able to engage so many people across the world, all over the world, developing economies, emerging economies, around environmental issues. Particular sectors have shown incredible engagement, acceleration in engagement over the last couple of decades, particularly the private business sector. But what really excites me most is the booming of civil society engagement, again, across the whole world. And that's particularly the local level. Community-based, local NGOs, group of concerned citizens are really coming together and creating a new global movement then I think has the potential to turn things around and to exert the pressure and raise the demands for public good.
The Earth Day is an event instituted in 1970 to demonstrate support for the protection of the environment. Many experts use the day to campaign for changing people in order to save the world from global warming and the harming effect of climate change. Environmentalists are warning that the planet is in a miserable state. We are running out of our natural resources, we are overpopulating the globe and running out of room. The air that we breathe is becoming toxic, the oceans are rising, and soon major coastal cities will be underwater and the earth is heating up. Environmentalists have warned that since the first Earth Day, our global vehicle population has swelled from 246 to 730 million. Air traffic has gone up by a factor of 6. The rate at which we grind up trees to make paper has doubled to 200 million metric tons per year, which quartz from the soil with the help of strange chemicals, 2.25 times as much wheat, 2.5 times as much corn, 2.2 times as much rice, almost twice as much sugar, almost 4 times as many soybeans as we did 30 years ago. We pull from the oceans almost twice as much fish. The most recent State of the Earth report from the United Nations Environment Programme states that from a global perspective, the environment has continued to degrade during the past decade, and significant environmental problems remain deeply embedded in the socio-economic fabric of nations in all regions. Progress towards a global sustainable future is just too slow. A sense of urgency is lacking internationally and nationally. The funds and political will are insufficient to halt further global environmental degradation and to address the most pressing environmental issues, even though technology and knowledge are available to do so. The latest Living Planet report stated that wildlife populations worldwide have declined by 52% since 1970. We're living as though we have more than one planet at our disposal. By taking more than nature can replenish, we are jeopardizing our own future. The report tracks thousands of species, populations, and measures how the impact of the way we live our lives is affecting our environment.
Today is rather the absence of birds in the sky and other wildlife in our forest, to actually, in the oceans, to actually send us very clear signals that we are not living sustainably. And in fact, the report is showing also, more broadly, that our footprint on the planet is increasing, continues to rise. That means that we are cutting trees faster than they can regrow, we are catching fish faster than they can reproduce, we are emitting more CO2 than oceans and forests can absorb. So we are on a total unsustainable path. We know that very clearly now. We are overshooting, we are living beyond the planetary boundaries, and we have to change the trend. And I would like to mention another dimension of poverty. Poverty is, in some regions, is considered a driver of environmental degradation, but much more often is actually a consequence of environmental degradation. And it's actually very true that there is no future, there is no map for true poverty alleviation if you do not really address environmental issues. So many people are depending directly on natural resources, and most of the time those communities are actually the poorest in the world, and so the security of their livelihood is very strongly connected to a healthy environment. And more broadly, there is not going to be a prosperous future for humanity in a degraded environment.
The average temperature across global land and ocean surface temperatures combined for March 2015 was 0.85 degrees centigrade higher than the 20th century average of 12.7 degrees centigrade. This marks the highest March temperature in the 136-year period of record, surpassing the previous record of 2010 by 0.05 degrees centigrade. The Northern Hemisphere had its second highest March temperature on record, behind only 2008, while the Southern Hemisphere tied with 2002 for third highest.
Well, human influence on the climate system is clear. The more we disrupt our climate, the more we risk severe, pervasive, and irreversible impacts. Fortunately, we have the means, the good news, that we have the means to limit climate change and build a more prosperous, sustainable future. Now, if we look at the impact that human actions have had on the climate, these figures will show you that it's extremely likely, which denotes a probability of over 95%, that we are the dominant cause of warming since the mid-20th century. And you can see the data presented over here, which shows this very sharp increase after the middle of the last century. It's also true that each of the past 3 decades has been successively warmer than the preceding decades since 1850. And if you look at where the heat has gone, this is a major finding of the 5th assessment report. More than 90% of the energy accumulating in the climate system between 71 and 2010 has accumulated in the oceans. So in a sense, the oceans are bearing a large part of the burden that we have imposed on this planet in the form of climate change. And land temperatures remain at historic highs, while ocean temperatures continue to climb as the heat keeps sinking to lower depths in the ocean. GHG emissions, unfortunately, continue to grow. And in the period 2000 to 2010, which, if I may mention, has incidentally also been characterized by a period of economic downturn, still, between 2000 and 2010, emissions have grown much faster than in previous decades. So there is need for us to bring about a major change to this very disturbing trend. The sources of emissions come 35% from the energy sector, 24% from agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. Now, this is something that the 5th assessment report has focused on with due importance to this particular sector. 21% from industry, 14% from transport, and 6.4% from the building sector. Now, if you look at globally average combined land and ocean surface temperature, and this combines the two, this is the kind of picture we get beginning with the middle of the 19th century. And if we look at globally average sea level change, this again is something that causes concern, because average sea level rise since the beginning of the last century to 2010 has been 19 centimeters. And for several parts of the world, that certainly rings a lot of alarm bells. Some changes in extreme weather and climate events observed since about 1950 have been linked to human influence. Tropics to the poles have been impacted by climate change on all continents and in the ocean, affecting rich and poor countries. And we know that continued emissions will lead to oceans warming during the 21st century. And it's very likely that Arctic sea ice cover will continue to shrink, and that global mean surface temperature, as global mean surface temperature rises. In fact, we have projected, Secretary General, that in one of the scenarios, it shows that by the middle of this century, Arctic sea ice may not be seen during the month of September. Global mean sea level will continue to rise during the 21st, and global glacier volume will also shrink further. There will be impacts on food and water, increased poverty, increased displacement of people, and coastal flooding.